Hello everyone, good morning. Today is December 11th. I'd like to tell you that single entry and 3-year multiple entry visas for Japan have been suspended. 5-year multiple entry visas are still being processed normally, but the 5-year multi-entry visa has higher deposit requirements. You can choose other countries to travel to. Blogger Mr. Liu said that he came to Japan alone for work. He doesn't understand Japanese and he was completely bewildered when he got off the plane. Then, relying on gestures and translation software, I boarded the bus to Terminal 2 Airport. Midway through the journey, I got off with some other passengers. Suddenly, an old man called out to me, mumbling something. I told him Terminal 2. Then, he quickly gestured for me to get back on the bus. He went to the front and mumbled something to the driver. I don't know what he said. It was probably something about me going to Terminal 2. I felt very moved and touched, so I posted a video on Douyin saying how friendly Japan is. But then all the comments were insults. I don't know what to say now. Recently, information from multiple sources indicates that Japan has effectively suspended issuing visas to the vast majority of Chinese citizens. Although the official Japanese explanation is visa system maintenance, in reality, this measure has already significantly affected travel between China and Japan. According to the recent notices received by several Japanese visa agencies in China, the visa application system of the Japanese embassy and consulates in China has been under maintenance since December 9th, resulting in the suspension or restriction of related services. The main affected visa types are single-entry visas and 3-year multiple-entry visas, which are precisely the two most frequently chosen visa types by Chinese applicants. Because many people have been asking whether Japanese visas can still be processed normally, I'll address this today. Single-entry and 3-year multiple-entry visas for Japan have been suspended. 5-year multiple-entry visas are currently being processed normally, but the requirements for a 5-year visa are higher. Only those who meet the criteria can apply. Furthermore, the Japanese consulate will be closed for holidays from December 27th to January 4th. We've been saying that the Japanese visa fees are about to increase. We don't know if any single-entry and 3-year visas will resume processing after the holidays on January 4th, or by how much. Those with travel plans will have to wait and apply later. Several agents state that single-entry and 3-year multiple-entry visas are currently unavailable, and the resumption time is undetermined. The Japanese side has only stated that they will notify applicants after system maintenance is completed. During this period, agencies generally advise applicants not to book flights and hotels in advance to avoid unnecessary financial losses. It's worth noting that 5-year multiple-entry visas have not yet been affected. However, this type of visa has extremely high requirements. Applicants typically need to have an annual income exceeding $70,000 or proof of equivalent assets in a bank account. This means that the number of Chinese people eligible to apply for a 5-year multi-entry visa is already very limited. In practical terms, Japan's suspension of single-entry and 3-year multiple-entry visas is almost equivalent to closing the door to Japan for the vast majority of Chinese citizens. The key aspect of the suspension by Japan involves the so-called guarantee of identity. When applying for a Japanese visa, Chinese applicants are usually required to submit a document called a guarantee of identity that proves they will not overstay their visa in Japan and will return to China in accordance with the regulations. The Japanese explanation is that the module in the visa system that processes the guarantee of identity needs maintenance. Therefore, the processing of related visas has to be suspended. However, many industry insiders believe that Japan's explanation of system maintenance is more of an excuse, as the impact appears to be limited to Chinese citizens. Other countries and regions have not experienced widespread suspensions. Many observers point out that Japan's tightening of visa policies for China is closely related to a new wave of anti-Japanese sentiment in China, which has been tacitly approved or even incited by the Chinese government. This sentiment not only puts pressure on Japanese companies operating in China, but also directly impacts mutual trust between the two nations. Against this backdrop, the Japanese government's choice to cool down personal exchanges through visa policies serves both to reduce risk and as a diplomatic response. Several Japanese visa agents and industry insiders privately assess that this situation is unlikely to recover quickly in the short term. The prevailing expectation is that Japan will not adjust its policies until at least March next year, after the Chinese New Year. That's if there are signs of easing in Sino-Japanese relations. On the surface, this is just a visa system maintenance incident, but in reality, it reflects the tense relationship between China and Japan. When the political winds shift, ordinary people's lives are often the first to be affected.
好多人问现在日本签证还能不能去？
Many people have asked if it's still possible to travel to Japan with a visa. Today, I'll tell you the truth. Long-term visas are completely unaffected. This includes research visas, cultural visas, chefs with family members, and student visas. These can still be obtained, as Japan is currently experiencing a labor shortage, and long-term residency policies are actually being relaxed. However, short-term visas are different. The biggest impact is on tourist visas, whether it's a 3-year multiple entry visa, a 5-year multiple entry visa, a business visa, or a group visa. Everything is now strictly controlled. It's not that you can't go, but the review process has become stricter. Agencies are undergoing restructuring, and even slightly incorrect materials can lead to rejection. The blogger reminds everyone not to assume that Japan will relax visa requirements to boost consumption. They now not only need to screen high-spending individuals but also prevent illegal overstaying, making tourist visas the most difficult to obtain. Several employees of Chinese state-owned enterprises recently told the South China Morning Post that although they had been granted permission to travel to Japan for business or leisure, their companies recently asked them to cancel their trips. Meanwhile, on social media platforms like Xiaohongshu, users also complained that their government agencies were forcing them to abandon their travel plans to Japan. Recently, the topic of corporate layoffs has once again sparked heated discussions. Almost simultaneously, two news reports presented a stark contrast. One was that Canon, a well-known Japanese optical instrument manufacturer, announced the closure of its factory in Zhongshan City, Guangdong Province, China. Canon won praise from employees for its generous compensation plan, which netizens dubbed the ceiling of compensation. The other was that the Chinese technology company Lenovo Group launched a new round of layoffs, catching hundreds of employees off guard with only a 2-minute recorded announcement during a meeting. Drawing criticism as cold-blooded layoffs, these two incidents reflect the drastically different attitudes of companies towards their employees when facing operational pressures. On the 21st of last month, Canon's Zhongshan factory, which had been operating for 24 years, officially ceased production. This company, once considered a benchmark in Zhongshan's manufacturing industry, boasted a cumulative output value of 7 billion and paid 330 million in taxes. However, it ultimately succumbed to the shrinking laser printer market and the rapid rise of domestic brands like Phantom and Lenovo. According to Chinese law, the standard compensation for layoffs is typically N+1, where N represents the employee's years of service. However, Canon's core compensation formula this time was 2.5 N+1, far exceeding the legal requirement. This news quickly sparked heated discussions online, with many netizens expressing envy and praising Canon's approach as that of a conscientious company. Employees shared screenshots of their bank statements showing employees with 20 years of service received $90,000. Assembly line supervisors received $125,000. Cleaning staff received $43,000. Ordinary frontline employees started at $36,000. Many employees left comments expressing gratitude and satisfaction, with some longtime employees even bidding farewell in tears. As the last car drove out of the company gate, goodbye Canon. Recently, the Zhongshan Canon factory announced the termination of labor contracts with its employees, unexpectedly becoming a hot topic and sparking much discussion. As a leading Japanese brand of office equipment, you would never imagine that Canon would offer 2.5 N+1 severance pay, plus an additional 5 months of employment resource funds to ensure all employees leave the company satisfied. Can you believe it? Blogger Sister Lin said that in contrast, some company employees have to go through arbitration to get N+1. What does 2.5 N+1 mean? For example, based on a monthly salary of $700, an employee with 24 years of service could receive $57,000 in compensation. At this moment, Canon's most deeply ingrained advertising slogan seems to resonate again. Canon's spirit of compassion endures. Employees who received their severance pay shared their joy online. Some announced early retirement to enjoy life, while others posted photos of their deposits to congratulate each other, saying it felt like they become rich overnight and shouting, "Thank you, Canon." Canon's compensation to its Chinese employees far exceeded the standard of domestic companies, sparking envy among many netizens. Some commented, "Foreign companies treat Chinese people well, while state-owned enterprises bully them." Many netizens bluntly criticize domestic companies. They only exploit their employees, and foreign companies proactively pay compensation, while we only pay when people have to stand on the rooftop. That's the difference. Almost simultaneously, Lenovo ISG China initiated personnel optimization. On December 1st, a scheduled 15-minute online meeting delayed by 13 minutes consisted of only a 2-minute audio recording announcing a comprehensive restructuring of the software, firmware, and OS teams in China. With all relevant personnel in the Shanghai site included in the layoffs, the meeting ended immediately without a question or explanation. According to reports, the restructuring involves hundreds of employees in Shanghai, approximately 200 to 400, and also extends to Beijing, Tianjin, Shenzhen, and other locations. Lower-level R&D functions in the China region may be completely eliminated, and global product software development may be transferred to India, Taiwan, and the US. Rumors regarding compensation packages vary, ranging from N+2 to a maximum of N+6, but quarterly bonuses will be deducted, and the negotiation period is only 3 days, with conditions reduced if the deadline is missed. What angered employees even more was the perceived cold-bloodedness of the entire process. Executives announced the layoffs as a so-called special reward via recorded message. Even pregnant women and other vulnerable groups were included on the list, with no grace period and a lack of necessary communication. Many employees criticized Lenovo for its arrogance, believing the company completely failed to demonstrate the necessary humanistic care. This blogger said that seeing Lenovo's layoffs was truly shocking, like a verdict delivered in 2 minutes.
部件和操作系统团队
It is okay for you to lay off employees. However, look at the formality they use. They have a new CTO record a message, and then he himself didn't even show up. They didn't give employees any opportunity to ask questions or express their opinions. They even call the layoffs a special award, as if laying you off is like giving you an award. HR, on the other hand, never mentioned the word layoff, saying it is a negotiated termination, which gives a very arrogant and hurtful feeling. Lenovo's profits soar, yet it lays off key Chinese employees. Recently, Lenovo's layoffs have sparked controversy. Its financial report shows a revenue surge of 18% and net profit soaring by 40%. Yet, it immediately laid off over 200 core R&D employees in its China region. A foreign executive was 13 minutes late and dismissed the group with a 2-minute recording, packaging the layoffs as a special award. 8-year veteran employees, after their compensation was deducted, couldn't even afford 6 months' mortgage payments. Even pregnant employees were summoned. Even more ironically, while the Chinese team is being used and discarded, the R&D centers in Silicon Valley and India are aggressively expanding, with salaries increasing by 15%. It seems they're trading the hard-earned performance of Chinese employees for low-cost overseas teams. This calculation has been heard throughout China. Shouldn't a national enterprise's confidence not be used to hurt the feelings of the Chinese people like this? Canon and Lenovo both faced unavoidable choices due to market changes. The former faced a shrinking traditional printer market, while the latter struggled with profitability issues in its infrastructure business. However, their approaches are drastically different. One earned respect through high compensation and humanistic care, while the other sparked discontent with indifferent notifications. Online discussions are heated. Some believe Canon demonstrated corporate responsibility, while Lenovo exposed cost shifting under globalization. Workers lamented that layoffs may be unavoidable, but could there be more compassion? Legal compensation is merely the bottom line. Corporate culture and attitude determine whether employees leave with gratitude or resentment. Recent remarks by Japan's new Prime Minister Sanya Takeichi regarding a possible Chinese attack on Taiwan have once again strained the sensitive Japan-China relationship. On November 7th, her reply in the House of Representatives Budget Committee points out that a contingency in Taiwan could be considered a life-or-death crisis for Japan. This statement was interpreted by the outside world as a possible Japanese military intervention in a Taiwan Strait conflict, immediately triggering a diplomatic row. In the following days, the Chinese Communist Party launched an intensive anti-Japanese propaganda campaign. CCP's military newspapers published a series of articles warning that the entire Japanese territory may become a battlefield. The Air Force declared with high-profile pronouncements that guns are loaded and swords are drawn. And CCTV broadcast footage of Chinese officials receiving Japanese officials with their hands in their pockets. On the 21st, the military newspaper reiterated that if Japan intervenes in the Taiwan Strait, it'll face a head-on blow and suffer an even more complete defeat. On Weibo, some mainland netizens called for allowing anti-Japanese parades to demonstrate the determination of the Chinese people. Veteran journalist Katsuchi Nakazawa wrote an article reminding the Chinese Communist Party that inciting protests is a double-edged sword. It could ultimately backfire on the Xi Jinping administration. He recalled the large-scale anti-Japanese demonstrations that erupted in August and September 2012 due to the Diaoyu Islands dispute. At that time, protests quickly spread nationwide, and some shops and factories of Japanese companies were vandalized. Nakazawa pointed out that 13 years ago, the CCP could relatively easily control the situation, because the protests were government-led, but the situation is very different now. Real estate prices continue to fall, people's assets are shrinking, and living pressures are increasing. Youth unemployment remains high, and social discontent is accumulating. Against this backdrop, he believes that if the authorities tacitly allow the anti-Japanese demonstrations sparked by Takeichi's remarks about Taiwan, the protests could spread rapidly across the country like wildfire and, if out of control, evolve into an anti-government movement. Faced with severe economic difficulties, the public urgently needs an outlet to vent their long-suppressed discontent. That's all for today. If you enjoy our content, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with a friend. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time.